Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Bring It Back. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that were canceled and or short-lived that I would like to see get brought back in some shape or form. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the NBC show, The Endgame. Really quickly, if you're unfamiliar with The Endgame it is basically about this criminal, Elena Fedorova, who runs an organization known as Snow White. She gets into like arms dealing and stuff like that. She's kind of an international criminal. Well, she finally gets brought in by the FBI, and she has this plan where she has her Snow White operatives out there like taking over a whole bunch of banks. And basically, she has a whole bunch of demands. Those demands, it seems like she's got some grand plan, some end game, if you will, where she's planning on taking down a lot of very powerful bad people. Because it seemed like, oh, she's like a villainous person, but then you find out, oh, she actually potentially wants to help, but she'll only kind of communicate and work with someone named Val Turner, an FBI agent who she has some history with. Which Val's got her own circumstances. Her husband Owen's in jail because he's also a fellow FBI agent, but he was kind of arrested for doing some shady stuff. Regardless of it all, Elena is working with Val. It's like, right, telling her these roundabout, almost like fairy tale inspired stories, but they're based on like reality, and like there's like hidden messages, and that she's this person that's thought this far ahead, has all these like plans upon contingency plans upon contingency plans. Like I said, she seems villainous from the very beginning, but she ends up having maybe some altruistic elements to why she's doing what she's doing. But yeah. Sadly, the show was canceled after its first season. It's actually been a little while since the show got canceled. This was one of many shows that got canceled in a mass cancellation that happened like a month or two ago. It was probably like 2 months ago at this point in time. But yeah, this was one of those shows, sadly, which is such a bummer. Because this show, it definitely has, like, if you're familiar with The Blacklist, it definitely has like a Blacklist vibe to it. But the Blacklist has a very procedural element to it. This could, but everything is like connected in the long run. So I wouldn't even say this has a procedural element to it. It can, but it's all part of a greater plan. Whereas the Blacklist doesn't always feel like that, because it's just kind of like, oh, who's the bad guy of the week type of feel. This didn't necessarily have that. It did definitely feel like it was all part of a greater like plot. There were all threads to a well, they're chess pieces on a board. They are the smaller moves to win the larger game. So, and it's such a shame because this show was so good in my opinion. Someone had commented at the time, they were like, yeah, the show, they didn't understand why the show, had commented on one of my reviews saying they didn't understand why the show wasn't well received. So I don't know whether it's a thing of like people just didn't like the show. From what I picked up, like there's a lot of people that backed the show and really liked it, but the problem was it just, from what I was reading, it did okay ratings wise. It just didn't do anything extraordinary. At the time of me recording this, there's still no, I think still no clear picture why it got canceled, but those are theories and people have about why. But I think the later one is probably, it just didn't do well enough for NBC to go like, yeah, let's greenlight it for a second season. Because this is a show, I don't want just a season 2. This is a show that has legs. It could go for a while. Would it go as long as The Blacklist, which is going into its 10th season? No. And the reason why I keep comparing it is just because it definitely feels a lot like The Blacklist, especially the Val and Elena, like, back and forth, definitely feels very reminiscent of Reddington and Liz. They're the whole dynamic. But yeah, like at the very least, at any point, I would want any show to, at the bare minimum, get 5 seasons. Like I said, this is a show that you could definitely see where things were going to grow without spoiling it, just in case you do ever want to check it out. But you do now know the show's canceled, so if you hadn't started it, you most likely won't now at this point. But if you know, the show ended on a pretty major cliffhanger, so you saw there was plenty of story left to tell. Like I said, this show could have had legs and going on for a while. Like I said, at bare minimum, I wanted to at least, I feel like 5 seasons would have been a good benchmark, but sadly, it won't get that chance. This was on NBC, so it kind of limits, even if this show was picked up by any streamers, I don't know what any streaming service that would really kind of jump on it. Netflix, with where things kind of stand it business-wise and stuff, I don't see them picking up too many shows, especially a show that was canceled after its first season. I feel like if a show's been around a couple years, other things might be more inclined to pick it up, but after one season, I feel like when you only get your one season, I feel like that's something that's someone's going to be less likely to kind of pick up a show, no matter how big of a fan base it might have. If it's not big enough, it's just probably not worth it. If a show has been around a while and the audience is there, that's kind of a different story, I think. But if any network's going to pick this up, it wouldn't be Peacock, considering this was NBC. I don't see them canceling this and putting it on Peacock. If that was going to happen, they would have just been like, yeah, we're getting a season 2, but it's going to be solely on Peacock. It would have been that kind of like CBS and Paramount Plus with some of their shows. It would have been something like that. But maybe Prime Video, but I don't know if I'm sure maybe they have. I'm just not aware of any shows that they've brought back. And then maybe a Hulu, but once again, I don't know if they'd be even interested. Those seem like the only streamers I see would be a viable thing. Probably more so Hulu than anything, but you know, once again, I'm sure licensing deals and stuff like that would probably like make that a little harder. But I'm just so bummed that this show got canceled. I'd love, once again, it to have longer legs, a longer life, but it just seems impossible, especially at this point in time, because nothing's changed subsequently. Like I said, it's been a little while since the news of its cancellation came out. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.